Hi everyone, welcome back and thank you for joining us for Class 5, which is the penultimate class of One Healthy World. I'm Dr. Josh Cullymore, the Director of Preventative Medicine at the Physicians Committee. And here again with me today is the President of the Physicians Committee, Dr. Neal Barnard. Dr. Barnard, can you believe we're nearly at the end of the programme already?
I'm feeling sentimental. It's almost over, but it's been such a great series.
It has indeed. And we've got 2 more classes, including this one. So thank you so much again to everyone for joining. We have a fantastically global audience again. I can see we have people from Saskatchewan, Rotterdam, Wales, Montreal, all over the world. So thank you so much. Please do tell us again if you've noticed any health effects this week and what your favorite recipes of the week have been so far. So please put any nutrition questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. That allows our dietitians to see them and respond to as many as they can. And please make those questions relevant to the whole group if possible. Any personal medical questions should be directed to your own healthcare provider. Today, Dr. Neal Barnard, Dustin Harder and Leila Dehghan will discuss healthy eating whilst travelling. Dr. Shireen Kassam will talk to us about foods for cancer prevention and survival. And Luke Tan and Jaden Ordner will join us for a panel on optimal diets for athletes. So to crack on with the programme, I'm delighted to introduce our first guests, Dustin Harder and Leila Dehghan. Dustin Harder is a culinary specialist with the Physicians Committee and the host and creator of the vegan travel culinary series, The Vegan Roadie, and the excellent podcast, Keep On Cooking. He also works as a private chef and cooking instructor and is the author of 3 cookbooks. And Dr. Leila Dehghan is the education lead for Plant-Based Health Professionals UK and is a qualified medical doctor, registered nutritionist, personal trainer, martial artist, public speaker, and author. So thanks so much to both of you for joining us today. I understand you're going to talk about healthy eating in the car, train, or plane.
Yes, very excited.
Please take it away.
Fantastic. Well, I'm Dustin Harder. As Dr. Cullymore said, I'm the culinary specialist with PCRM. I'm excited to be here with Leila today to talk about 2 of my favorite things, being vegan and traveling and keeping things health forward. But I want to talk a little bit about my philosophy of that. And you can see that a little bit in my series. I want to mention the resource, The Vegan Roadie, which is all about traveling and having healthy bites while you're on the road. There's 3 seasons to watch for free on YouTube, Roku, Apple TV, veganroadie.com, Plant-Based Network. It's all over the place. It's called The Vegan Roadie. It's like a plant-based version of diners, drive-ins, and dives. And it really gets into traveling and eating while on the go. And also we do the 3rd season in Italy. So if you want to see some tasty plant-based bites in Italy, go ahead and watch free episodes of The Vegan Roadie. But like I said, I want to talk about my overall philosophy on sort of keeping it health forward while also traveling, trains, planes, automobiles. And then Leila is going to give you some specifics and some examples of ways to do that as well. But my big thing I do is I keep an acronym in my mind that I've had for a long time. It's NERP, N-E-R-P, NERP. The first thing is to be nice. And I know that seems like we're just going to be nice. We're going to do that, right? But have you ever been at the end of a long travel day and you're just overwhelmed and you go somewhere and you want to order food and they don't have anything that's health forward or plant-based on the menu? You start to get frustrated. And it's easy to sort of take those frustrations maybe out on your server, which doesn't feel good for anybody. Also, when you're nice to that server, you can start a conversation and a collaboration. Maybe the server doesn't know what plant-based eating is. Maybe they have a different idea of it. Like they think they have some plant-based options, but you can point some things out where you can take some things from the menu and make an easy dish in that restaurant that they didn't have before just by offering some suggestions and having a nice conversation with the server. And then you're making a bigger change for the world, right? Because then the server, next week, someone comes in who's got the same mindset as you, is asking about plant-based options. That server can be like, oh, this person came in last week and they remember you because you had a nice, lovely conversation with them and you were served a delicious meal. And then that server is able to say, hey, listen, we've got these things on the menu, we can do that. So that's number one, to be nice. The second thing is to get excited. Again, it's so easy to get overwhelmed when we're off traveling on the road, in our car, in a train, in the plane, trying to figure out what to eat. Don't let it get the best of you. What you can do next is do your research, and that allows you to be excited, right? So if you do your research when you're heading out somewhere, for me, I've traveled all over the US. I know when I'm traveling through like Wyoming and Montana, I've got long stretches of road ahead of me, right? So I need to plan for having snacks in my vehicle. Does that mean I need to have a cooler? Does that mean I pick up my favorite snacks when I see whatever store they're available at before I get on the road? Does that mean I want some big items, like actual big meal items and not just snacks? What do I need to do? I do my research. Another way to do your research is Googling, right? I've said this before, Google University. It has everything you could possibly want. So you Google the place where you're going and put in whole food, plant-based, healthy, vegan dining, all of those things, and see what pops up, right? Happy Cow is an app that sort of can guide you in the right direction as well sometimes. So it's all about doing your research so that you can then also be prepared, right? We don't have anyone, there's nobody else to blame if you don't do your research and you're not prepared. It's up to us, right? We know where we're going. We know where we're traveling. It's up to us to sort of really take a look and see what's available. Fortunate this day and age in 2022, there's so many people out there who have done the work for us already. It's at our fingertips. We literally just have to look things up and see what's available, or look for ideas when traveling, or tune into things like One Healthy World to get those sort of ideas. So that's sort of my philosophy on it all. So you just want to keep a positive mindset when you're doing this so that you don't get bogged down by people not having items available for you and stuff like that. You can be nice, you can get excited, you can do your research and be prepared. Talking about getting excited and traveling, I'm going to Ireland and I wanted to share that all with you here today. You can check out my website, veganroadie.com. It's a group trip. We still have some spots open. If you're ready to travel, I would love for you to come with me, and we're going to do those things. We're going to get excited. We're going to do our research and be prepared. But speaking of be prepared, let's dial this back in. I want to bring Leila back in. She's going to talk about some very specific items you can take with you, planes, trains, automobiles, so that you're prepared no matter what. Leila, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Dustin. That was very useful and interesting. And thank you, Josh, for the earlier introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here, be part of this amazing program. And I'm so happy to see so many people from all over the world actually joining us today. So I'm going to share my screen first. So let me do that. And then I get started. So as you have already heard, I'm going to talk about healthy eating while traveling, and that can be by car, train, or plane. As Dustin was saying, when you go traveling, it is almost like a mini adventure, and you plan it and you want to be prepared. And the more prepared you are, the better you enjoy it. And actually eating healthy, delicious food can enhance your experience. So that's what we want to do. So the first option is buying something. In the UK, most long distance trains, they have a drink or food trolley where usually they have one plant-based option. Like last year, I was actually surprised. I found a chickpea wrap, which was really nice. But, there's only usually one option. And the other option is just buying a bag of nuts. So actually, I wouldn't really recommend relying on those food trolleys. It's much safer to buy something, from the shops at the railway station before you board the train. The same is when you are traveling by car. Most service stations there, you find the popular cafes and restaurants. So whenever you are having a rest and a break and you stop at one of those service stations, you can buy something from those shops. You have Subway, which, where you can get a veggie sandwich. Starbucks usually has a falafel spinach wrap. And they just recently launched a plant-based tuna sandwich here in the UK, which is really nice and delicious. And a lot of Costa branches, they have a jackfruit wrap. And you usually find, most restaurants have a soup, which is healthy and most of the times, again, plant-based. So you can opt to buy that. So it is really easy to find something delicious and plant-based when you're traveling by car. But what about if you're traveling by plane? Well, if it is a long distance flight, you can actually order the vegan plant-based meal in advance. Before the pandemic, when I was traveling from the UK to Canada, both ways, I got an Indian curry. Again, it was really nice. I didn't need to do any planning myself. I just ordered it and they served me. But if it is a short or medium haul, usually they don't serve anything. So again, your best option is actually to buy something before you board the plane. Most airports have a lot of different shops. You find, it's really easy to find something plant-based. Having said that, sometimes when you go through the security gate and you come to a terminal, some of the terminals can be very small. It has happened to me before, and you don't find any plant-based options whatsoever. And that's what, that takes me to my second option, which is packing your own snack. That's actually my favorite way of traveling, because once you have your own snacks, you don't really need to worry about food. You can still explore, when you go to a service station or rail station or, any shop you see, you can see what plant-based options they have and you can buy that. But if you don't find anything, you have your own food, so you don't need to worry about it. And, your own snack, it can be as easy, as having a few fruits, banana, apple, mango, orange, grapes, whatever you like. You can just, take it with you. Or veggie sticks, celery, carrot, cucumber, paprika slices with a top of hummus or soya yogurt. That's really good. Or you can take, again, hummus or a jar of your favorite nut butter and enjoy that with brown rice cakes or whole wheat crackers. Just bear in mind, if you're traveling by plane, the security will actually confiscate your hummus and soya yogurt and even nut butter. So that is not something you want to take with you, if you're traveling by plane. But you have more options. You can actually, pack dry fruits with you, and you can make your own bags. You don't need to buy it actually from the shops, dried apricots, figs, raisins, dates, or mixed nuts. Again, make your own mixed nuts, whatever you like. Or even better, make a trail mix. And these are actually really light options, very easy to carry in your bags. Or another option, what I like, is one of my favorite, is making your own homemade fruit yogurt. I usually use a soya yogurt, then I add, banana, berries, nuts, and you can also add seeds like flax seeds or even oats. If you add oats, it makes it into an overnight oats. It's really nice breakfast or snack. Put it in a jar and just take it with you, whether you are going on a train ride or by car. Just again, remember, that is not an option if you're traveling by plane. Or if you want something more substantial, you can make your own sandwich. And it doesn't need to be anything complicated. Keep it simple. That's what I like. Keep it simple, and it shouldn't be time consuming. All these snacks are actually taking less than 5 minutes to prepare. Cashew butter with cucumber slices is a very good actually sandwich, especially in summer. It's very refreshing. Or if you have a sweet tooth like I have, vegan cream cheese with banana slices. I usually add a bit of cinnamon on it. Again, very easy. You make it in 2 minutes. Hummus goes quite well with avocado, and you can add salad to it, cucumber, tomato, or a green salad, whatever you like. Or again, if you have a sweet tooth, try peanut butter with carrot. You can add a drizzle of date syrup or maple syrup, and I always add some cinnamon. Again, it's almost like a carrot cake, really nice, try it. Or if you want something savory, black bean avocado wrap. Mash your avocado, mash the black beans, add a bit of parsley and maybe tomato slices, and you make a nice wrap. So keep it simple. It doesn't need to be complicated, but it is something you can carry with you. And as I said, you can still explore the shops and see what the plant-based options they have. Now, I just want, before I finish, I want to give you a tip. At the moment, you are trying a lot of new recipes, a lot of new plant-based recipes. Whenever you like a recipe, make a note of it, save the recipe. This way, you actually create your own book of your favorite recipes. And from time to time, you can go through the recipes and see, which ones you haven't had it in a while and make that. So this way you can actually make sure that it's much easier to continue your plant-based journey. Thank you. Let me stop my screen share. There we go.
That's great. Thank you so much, Leila, for those really helpful tips, and Dustin as well. Yeah, fantastic tips and good reminder about anything that's liquid or near liquid for airplanes. Someone said they had their peanut butter removed from them at the airport in the chat here. Some great tips on snacks coming through. Someone suggested popcorn is a great addition. Someone brings some oats and asks for hot water on the plane. So yeah, and some really good suggestions of UK places to eat. In the US, Dr. Barnard will probably give us some tips, but I'm quite a fan of Chipotle. They do some delicious burritos. Yeah, and Dustin, thanks so much for the acronym. It's a good one to remember, NERP. I've been vegan quite a long time now, and it's sometimes hard to, remember that veganism isn't widespread, or that not everyone understands what it is. So being able to, gently explain is really important. Okay, so continuing on the theme of travel, delighted to have Dr. Barnard back. Dr. Barnard is the president of the Physicians Committee and adjunct professor of medicine at the George Washington School of Medicine. He has written more than 100 scientific publications and has traveled extensively to speak at numerous medical conferences. So has much experience of eating in hotels, which I believe is what you're going to tell us about today.
Let's jump in. I'm going to share my screen if I can. There we are. Okay, so we have arrived at the hotel and we're at check-in. And hotels have different kinds of policies, but it's a really cool idea to ask for one thing, and that's a mini refrigerator. And you'll find that the sort of mid-range hotels have them automatically, but sometimes the really high-end places don't. So you say, I would like to have a mini fridge brought to my room. Will they do it? Absolutely they will, because they are thinking you have diabetes and you want to put your insulin in it. So they always have a mini fridge, whether they tell you or not. You don't need to tell them that you're actually going to use it for your leftover Chinese food, which is a perfectly legitimate use for that mini fridge. After you ask for your mini fridge, don't forget the microwave. A microwave oven is very, very handy when you travel. And if you go to the nearest grocery store, pick up a nice big measuring cup made of Pyrex and some oatmeal, and you can do all kinds of experiments seeing how you can actually cook your own breakfast just in your microwave oven. Exactly, it'll work. Okay, now for extra credit, stay at a hotel that actually has a kitchenette. There are a lot of them. They're called like long-term stay or residence inn or whatever. The world is your oyster. Just go grocery shopping and you can pick up whatever you want, and now you can cook it in your room. So very, very easy, very nice. Now, what if you're doing room service? Got a few room service tips for you. Number one, you'll discover that you want to modify a few things. For example, could I have the spaghetti with the marinara sauce, but leave off the cheese? Or there are other modifications you're going to want to make. If you start with a really hard item, the busy person on the other end of the phone is going to want to get you off the phone and they're going to be annoyed. So start with something easy first, like, can I have a green salad? Yes. Remember, the menu is just a suggestion. They might not have put the veggie burger on there, but ask. They probably have it. Spaghetti marinara, side vegetables, salads. They probably have all these things, even if they're not printed on the menu. Go ahead and ask. And when they bring you dressings and sauces, you might want to ask them to have them on the side so you can control the amount that you get. Okay, so your room service arrives, the doorbell rings, and in comes the person who has brought it. Inevitably, there will be something that's not quite perfect. If you wanted something to be perfect, I got to tell you, stay home, make it yourself. Traveling always brings you a little adventure here and there. So, as we heard very much from Dustin, be nice and give the waiter or server what the server really wants the most, which is money. That's right. I know what you're thinking. You're saying, oh, you Americans are big with tipping, but where I live, people don't normally tip. Set a new tradition. Tip them, especially if they're going to be there tomorrow. Because if you live in a place where people don't normally tip the server, they're going to remember the person who gave them even $2 or $3. Make it work. Start a new tradition. Okay, so you're going to be going out to eat. Don't forget there are all kinds of international cuisines that you can enjoy. Almost every place has Italian cuisine. They may call it vegan, they may not. But they've got a cheeseless pizza they can make. They've got spaghetti with a marinara sauce or a arrabbiata sauce, which is just spicy tomato sauce. They got all kinds of great choices. Latin American cuisine, many wonderful choices from beans and rice and all kinds of things. Needless to say, Chinese, granddaddy of vegan cuisine, all kinds of tofu dishes and rice dishes. And you'll find so many Indian restaurants in every city of any size, Japanese too. Not talking fish sushi, we're talking vegetable sushi. At the steakhouse, yep, you can start with a green salad, but why not ask for all the sides? They've got them, they take pride in them, and they're gonna bring you all those wonderful side vegetables, and everyone is gonna wish they ordered what you got. Now, if you're in America, and you go to a Denny's or a similar place like this, got a tip. They may not think about oatmeal, but they got it. And then for the best breakfast that you ever had, say, I'd like to order an omelet with asparagus and spinach and so forth, but hold the eggs. The server says, hold the eggs. You say, yeah, that's right. You have all of these ingredients for the omelet. I don't want the eggs. So they bring in the tomatoes and the asparagus and everything. So toast on the side, you got a great, great breakfast. Fast food places. Yep, I saw in the chat, somebody's going to be on a bus tour. Fast food places will accommodate you if you know what to look for. Subway, Taco Bell, they've got it. So there you go. Traveling always brings an adventure, but you're going to have fun. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Barnard. Great tips there. Okay, so now moving on to our health discussion. Really pleased to welcome back Dr. Shireen Kassam, who joined us for some earlier classes. Dr. Kassam is a consultant haematologist and honorary senior lecturer at King's College Hospital, London, and the founder and director of Plant-Based Health Professionals UK, and is the author of the book Eating Plant-Based. So welcome, Dr. Kassam.
Thank you very much. It's great to be back again. And I'm talking today on a topic that's really close to my heart because haematology is a big specialty, but I spend my time either diagnosing or treating patients with haematological cancers. So I also spend a lot of time talking about food and lifestyle tips for cancer prevention and survival. And it's really a family affair. You've met already my husband, my father, and my 2 dogs. And today, this is my older sister, who is a radiation oncologist in Canada and is founder and director of Plant-Based Canada, a similar organization to mine here in the UK. And we both are passionate about promoting healthy diet, plant-based diets and lifestyle medicine. And this is us in 2016 at the Physicians Committee's International Conference on Nutrition and Medicine. And we'll come back to why we chose the broccoli maybe a bit later. But we're really passionate about promoting healthy diets. And here we are standing outside the White House with Dr. Barnard, asking people to break the meat habit. So why is this so important? Why are we telling people to remove meat from the diet? Well, just the previous year to that conference in 2015, the World Health Organization told everybody that processed red meat is a group 1 carcinogen. It actually causes cancer. And red meat, so unprocessed red meat, as shown here, is a probable carcinogen. It probably causes cancer. Now, this is mainly related to colorectal cancer, but there's direct increased risk of cancers of many other organs, including breast and prostate and pancreatic and so forth. And a large study published in 2019, analyzing dietary risk factors in 195 countries around the world, found that every year 1 million people die of cancer due to a poor diet. Not only that, we're living a less healthy and a worse quality life, with 20 million years lost in disability or premature death from unhealthy diet. And these unhealthy diets are so because they are high in sodium, they're too low in fiber, insufficient in all the healthy plant foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains and beans, and too high in red and processed meat. Now, a really interesting study was published just a few weeks ago in a really top journal called Nature. And basically, researchers did postmortems on over 100,000 animals from over nearly 200 mammal species that had died in zoos to determine if they had died from cancer. And what their analysis showed was that the cancer mortality was associated with diet, with carnivorous mammals, especially mammals that consume other animals, were facing the highest cancer-related mortality. So basically, instead of what they thought was going to be true, which was that those animals that lived the longest and are the largest had the highest rates of cancer, it was really in a strong association with the diet that they consumed. And the authors hypothesized that this was because of meat being a vehicle for carrying viruses, and also because environmental pollutants accumulate up the food chain. And of course, high meat diets are naturally going to be lower in fiber, higher in fat, and of course have a negative impact on the gut microbiome. So it's not just us as humans, other mammals also have higher risks of cancer as they incorporate more meat in the diet. So what about us, going back to humans? Well, we know from a lot of research that more than 4 out of 10 cancers could be prevented if we paid attention to diet and lifestyle. And this includes, and we're very familiar with this, not smoking tobacco. But second to this, the second commonest cause of cancer now is carrying too much weight. And I covered this in the first class of how eating a plant-based diet is one of the best ways to maintain a healthy weight during your lifetime. Insufficient fruits and vegetables is a risk factor, particularly because you have a lower fiber intake, unsafe exposure to the sun, drinking alcohol, and we'll come back to that, and insufficient physical activity. And so here we have the World Cancer Research Fund guidelines on how to prevent cancer. And it starts here with be a healthy weight, be physically active, eat a diet rich in whole grains, vegetables, fruits and beans. And this to me is a whole food plant-based diet or a healthy vegan diet. Limit fast food and other processed foods. And we know that these foods increase inflammation and they increase your body weight. Limit, I would say avoid the consumption of red and processed meat for the reasons I've already explained. Limit the consumption of sugar sweetened beverages, partly because of its association with inflammation and also carrying too much weight and increased risk of type 2 diabetes. Limit alcohol consumption. Don't use supplements for cancer prevention. That means that we should be aiming to get all of our nutrients as much as possible from our diet. Obviously, on a plant-based diet, you need a vitamin B12 supplement, but taking above the recommended nutrient intakes of various supplements has never been a good strategy for preventing cancer. If you're a mother, breastfeed if you can, because there's advantages for mother and baby. And the same advice is true for after a diagnosis of cancer, because it can improve survival and quality of life. And here it says that these recommendations will also prevent other non-communicable diseases that we've heard about during this series, such as type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. The key to a plant-based diet is it really addresses the key drivers of cancer, and they're listed here. So with a plant-based diet, you can reduce insulin resistance and promote insulin sensitivity, allowing glucose to go into the cells and insulin to work without too much problem. You can reduce cellular stress because plant foods are full of antioxidants that prevent damage to the DNA. You reduce inflammation. As I've explained, you reduce your exposure to carcinogens. You also promote a healthier gut microbiome, and we'll come back to this again in a moment, but we need a fiber-rich, polyphenol-rich diet to keep our gut microbiome happy. And also a plant-based diet will keep your growth hormones such as insulin and insulin-like growth factor at normal levels, and also your estrogen levels, which drives a lot of female cancers. So we know a lot about preventing cancer. The trouble is that public awareness is pretty low. And this is just one example of a survey from America, which shows that less than 50% of citizens recognize that alcohol, red meat, diets low in fruits and vegetables and fiber are all linked to cancer development. And we've had similar results here in the UK. So what do we know about plant-based or vegetarian or vegan diets? So two of the largest studies on vegetarians and vegans, one from the US and one from the UK, showed that vegans have a 16% reduced risk of cancer in the American study and a 19% reduced risk of cancer in the British study. And vegetarians also have a reduced risk, but to a lower degree. And then what about a healthy plant-based diet, even if it's not 100% vegetarian or vegan? Well, this study followed more than 50,000 subjects who were over the age of 45, and they only followed them for a median of 4.3 years. And within that time, they were able to show that people who ate the most fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes, whilst limiting or avoiding animal foods, had the lowest risk of cancer with an overall reduction of around 15%. So that sort of 10 to 15% reduction seems to be a true effect of a plant-based or vegan diet. Now, a quick word on dairy, because this can be confusing, because you'll read in the literature and the science journals that consuming dairy reduces the risk of colorectal cancer, but it's the calcium, and we can find better sources of calcium, healthier sources that do not come with the added growth hormones like estrogen and insulin-like growth factor. Because we also know that dairy is a key driver of prostate cancer, the commonest cancer in men, and may also increase the risk of breast and endometrial cancer in women. And I tell my patients that you can make a better choice. You can substitute dairy for soya milk, which has been associated with a significant reduction in the risk of breast cancer. And there's been similar studies for prostate cancer. So the bottom line for me is dairy is not necessary, and there are better ways to prevent cancer. Now, I do come down hard on alcohol because unfortunately, it is a group 1 carcinogen. It directly causes cancer and probably contributes to around 6% of cancers globally. And these are 7 of the most commonly associated with alcohol consumption. And all guidelines say it's best not to drink alcohol if you're trying to prevent and survive a diagnosis of cancer. So what about surviving cancer? We can't prevent every single case of cancer, and that's where I see my patients with a diagnosis of cancer. But for certain cancers, we can make a real difference. At the early stages of prostate cancer, this seminal study is always worth reviewing. Dr. Dean Ornish from the US took 93 men and randomized them to a low-fat plant-based diet, plus other healthy lifestyle habits like physical activity and stress relieving activities too. And he compared them to a group who didn't really change their diet or lifestyle, and food was delivered to the intervention arm 3 times a day. And after a year, he was able to show that those who'd been on the plant-based diet had a reduction in their prostate-specific antigen level, the hormone or the protein that is a marker of prostate cancer growth. But in the control group, there'd been an increase. Now, although this is statistically significant changes, they are small changes, but what's more important is that after 2 years, a quarter of the control group had to go on to have conventional treatment, such as radiotherapy or surgery, whereas only 5% in the lifestyle group had to undergo any further treatments. And we've got very similar results here from the Women's Health Initiative study, one of the most expensive and largest randomized studies in nutrition ever conducted. And what they found was that if you got breast cancer as a woman, but you were eating a low-fat diet, rich in vegetables, fruits, and whole grains, then you lived longer and you had a reduced risk of that breast cancer coming back. Now, one of the most exciting developments for me as a cancer doctor has been the fact that the health of the gut microbiome can really impact the outcomes from therapy, how well you do with a particular type of cancer therapy. And it's mainly related to those therapies that impact the immune system. They enhance the body's own ability to fight the cancer. And we've had 2 really interesting studies. The first one in 52 cancer patients receiving an immunotherapy agent, which showed that those eating the most green vegetables vegetables, cabbage, mushrooms, had a healthier gut microbiome and had a longer remission. And just a few weeks ago in the Science Journal, there was a study that showed that in people with melanoma, that's skin cancer, those eating the most fiber, more than 20 grams a day compared to less than 20 grams a day, had a better response to treatment. And every 5-gram increase in dietary fiber reduced your risk of progression of the disease or dying from the disease. Now, when it comes to supplements, obviously we know we need to take vitamin B12 on a plant-based diet, but for cancer, vitamin D is really important. I test it in every one of my patients and supplement accordingly to get their levels up to the normal range. So that is one supplement that's worth addressing. Now, I'm not one for talking about superfoods, but there are certain standout foods when it comes to cancer prevention. And some of them are shown here. I'm a huge fan of soya. Soya foods such as tofu have been associated with reduced risk of virtually every cancer you can think about. Mushrooms eaten on a regular basis can significantly reduce your risk of cancer. Cruciferous vegetables have a compound called sulforaphanes that inhibit cancer growth. The red colour in these fruits and vegetables signify a carotenoid called lycopene, which is associated with less prostate cancer. Onions and garlic and the allium family have organic sulfur compounds which inhibit cancer growth, and the dark colours of the berries are full of healthy compounds. And then these are also other inclusions in the diet that are really useful. So herbs and spices in general, but we all know that the king or queen of spice is turmeric, and that's got a lot of anti-cancer properties. Nuts are a really useful addition. Flax seeds have phytoestrogens, a bit like soya, and they're called lignans, which is shown to reduce the growth of cancer. And if you enjoy tea and coffee, it's absolutely fine to drink, and it may reduce the risk of certain cancers. For example, coffee reduces the risk of liver cancer and esophageal cancer. So here are my top tips. Eat a variety of healthy plant foods. Definitely swap your meat for beans. Add in soya foods minimally processed like tofu and edamame and tempeh. Swap your dairy milk for soya milk. Use lots of herbs and spices, and add nuts and seeds on a daily basis. We've got some really great fact sheets and articles on our website that summarizes some of these things, so do check us out at plantbasedhealthprofessionals.com. And a reminder of my book that answers some of these questions that you may have, and my weekly roundup of the plant-based news can be found on medium.com. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kassam. Fantastic news for coffee lovers there, which is great. And thank you for emphasizing the healthy benefits of soya, because I think there's still a lot of unnecessary fear about soya out there, isn't there? Do you hear that from patients?
Absolutely. It can be very confusing because you come up with all sorts of contradictory articles when you Google the term.
The science is clear. Soya is fantastic for your health. Thank you very much. Okay, so now moving on to our panel discussion for today. We're going to be discussing the perfect nutrition for athletes. So I'd love to welcome back Leila Dehghan and Dustin Harder. And I would also like to introduce a new guest. Jaden Ordner is an athlete and dietetics student working towards completing his Master of Dietetics at Deakin University in Melbourne, Australia. He became interested in plant-based nutrition on his journey towards long-distance mountain trail running, noting the benefits of recovery and general well-being after switching to a vegan diet. So thank you all very much again for joining us. So for our two athletes here, Jaden and Leila, I'm really interested to know about your plant-based journey and your athletic journey. Which came first, and did you notice any effect on your athletic performance after going vegan?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in there. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. My athletic journey began when I was really young. I actually spent most of my teenage years in elite development squads to play Australian rules football. So I'm no stranger to endurance training and sort of performing at a very high level. And it wasn't really until my mid-20s, long after I stopped playing football, that I started to consider my nutrition choices. I was running already at the time half marathon distances on the trails, riding around on my bike, and it was almost the last piece of the puzzle for me, really. I spent a long time considering things like my sleep and hydration, and I was always very conservative with how I would sort of increase my training volume. So nutrition really was still something I was not very familiar with, and I wasn't studying nutrition at this point. And I guess once I sort of stopped focusing so much on meat and dairy occupying so much of my plate, things really kind of clicked into place. And I think for me, transitioning to a plant-based diet was arguably the first time I'd ever actually fueled myself correctly. and I think there's interesting data that kind of supports that. I mean, there was a paper in 2016 that looked at hundreds of athletes who were performing in Ironman, triathlons, sort of winter sports, running, cycling, and I only found that 45% roughly of them were meeting carbohydrate needs. And prior to being plant-based, I would definitely consider myself to be one of those people. But yeah, I mean, once I was eating enough carbohydrates to support myself and sustain myself for these long bouts of endurance through the mountains, it was a different experience when I was an hour into a run and then recovering in the days after. So a pretty profound difference when that was sort of the last variable for me to click into place.
Oh, that's great to hear. Excellent. And Leila, how about you? What was your journey? I understand you're a martial artist.
Yes, well, it's interesting because I went vegan first, and as you know, you can be actually an unhealthy vegan, and that was me. So I was an unhealthy vegan, and I had actually an injury. I had a rotator cuff injury, and so I had to stop actually training, and I was, it was going very slow. I couldn't even, that was my right arm, so I couldn't really, my right shoulder, so I couldn't really use my arm as much. And then I discovered a whole food plant-based diet. So I changed my diet, and it was interesting. I mean, I did that and I got rid of my migraines, but at the same time, what happened is suddenly my recovery, from this injury got, it sped up. And for me, it was like I was trying to get back into training, doing push-ups, and I couldn't. And suddenly, after a week, I realized, oh my God, I can do push-ups. And that was, getting rid of all those processed foods. Although it was vegan, but still, process is process. And really eating a lot more micronutrients, a lot more phytonutrients. That actually helped me, just recover and get back to training. So for me, it was like, wow, yes, that is, I should have done that years ago. And just like Jaden was saying, one of the things I have noticed is when I'm running and doing all my drills, my kung fu drills, what I notice is that I feel my breathing is so much better. Actually the oxygen delivery, I feel like, I could go longer, I'm just faster. And yes, of course, the recovery, but for me, just, during the training, I noticed the difference. So I just enjoy the training much more. And yes, it's definitely better. And I feel always, we keep saying, people should go plant-based for their health. And I think actually, if you're an athlete and you're serious about your sport, you should go plant-based. Honestly, that it gives you the competitive edge.
Definitely. And you're right, there's really good evidence that plant-based diets increase your VO2 max, so your oxygen capacity. So it makes sense that you can breathe better, and that it reduces inflammation and improves your recovery time. So Dustin, I know you've had a couple of athletes on your podcast, Keep On Cooking. Can you tell us a bit about that? What did you find out from them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm also curious, I have another question for Jaden and Leila too. It's sort of a loaded question. We'll go back to it after I answer your question, which is on my podcast, Keep On Cooking. We had Matt Fraser of the No Meat Athlete on. So we had him on and we chatted about his book. So this is a great resource as well, the No Meat Athlete. And we've got Robert Cheek coming on, and he wrote a book with Matt Fraser called The Plant-Based Athlete. It's a little blurry there, sorry. And the cool thing about this book actually is that it interviews so many athletes. And that's the cool thing Jaden was talking about, when just getting the different stories and the different information from all of the athletes. It's it really just inspires everybody, athlete or not, when you kind of see what is possible on a plant-based diet, I feel. And that takes me to this question. I'm always curious because we always talk about fuel and recovery. Athletes are always talking about those sorts of items. So I'm curious with Leila and Jane, what are like foods you recommend for fuel? Like what's your go-to item for that? And then recovery as well. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, sure thing. It's amazing the sort of crossover of what Shireen was having on her slides earlier and what we eat as athletes. You could almost have similar stuff, I guess. But I actually really enjoyed this concept of an athlete's bowl. And why is because when I'm making up a big old bowl of eating foods I never used to eat often, things like quinoa and brown rice, I never used to have them too much, but I can adjust the ratios inside that bowl to meet what I'm about to do. So if I'm recovering, it's going to be maybe more tofu, lots of colors, more fiber and things like this, versus if I'm preparing the night before, that bowl is going to look a little bit different. I'm not going to have as much protein in the bowl. I'm going to have more carbohydrates. There's maybe less fiber going on. So for me, visually, I never really like to think about it in terms of numbers and more mathematical. I was always very visual in how, and a bowl for me, a circle with different portions was really great. I might have things like, quinoa, potatoes, sweet potato. I might even put in some pasta in there. I really like to diversify it as much as I can. So for me, that's definitely a staple. Another one, and I'm going to drop something on here that I don't think anybody does. I make scrambled tofu and I prepare it throughout the week when I'm recovering. I put tofu and lentils. There's a bunch of different ways people can do this, but the secret ingredient for me is miso. I put miso into my scrambled tofu. It's the bomb. But that's another way that, look, I can add mushrooms and tomato and spinach, and I can put it on something like a sourdough bread with avocado. Really, for us, it's interesting as athletes because we're trying to find ways to make things more calorie dense. You know, the benefits of eating a whole food plant-based diet usually is the early satiety that whole plant foods bring. But sometimes as athletes, we don't always want that. We want to find ways to eat more all the time. And you could almost summarize being a plant-based athlete with just that, eat more all the time. But I guess another really good way to achieve that for me is burritos, because I can have a beautiful carbohydrate-rich tortilla. I can put, again, a rice inside with beans. But I can also make it a bit more calorie dense with maybe a cashew cream sauce and avocado for my sources of fats to bulk it up a little bit. And actually, I developed a smoothie bowl recipe with Doctors for Nutrition, who's an Australian not-for-profit organization. We should have a link to that in the chat because I love making acai bowls with my homemade granola. But this is all very sort of recovery focused. When I'm eating to run, sometimes I am leaning a little bit more on some more processed foods. And I say that cautiously because I'm not talking about junk food. I'm talking about sort of faster absorbed carbohydrate sources. So maybe I don't have a wholemeal bread. I might have a white bread right before I'm going to go out and do something. And Leila can probably attest to that. You know, with the demands of needing energy quickly and to be released quickly for you, sometimes we need to lean on some sort of faster, accessible sources of fuel for ourselves.
Yeah, I love scrambled tofu. Good shout out. And lots of people on the chat agree with you there. And someone's also saying that they noticed their performance as a singer got much better after going whole food plant-based, again, for increased breathing capacity. So that's great to hear.
Another form of athleticism, I would say, probably.
Definitely, you're the performer, Dustin. So,
and Jaden agreed. Miso is delicious.
Yeah, definitely. And Leila, yeah, how about you in terms of? Yeah,
I can just second what Jaden was saying. I don't focus on numbers, so it's not like kind of, I couldn't say, what percentage of my food is carbohydrates and protein. In fact, because, I actually follow a whole food plant-based diet to kind of I actually adopted that to get rid of my migraines. So for me, I focus a lot on micronutrients. For me, it's almost like kind of how many fruits and vegetables did I have, today, for example. So that is my focus. And I find as long as I do that, it's interesting. I'm getting enough, carbohydrates. I'm getting enough protein. I actually, when I was doing my master's degree in nutrition, we had to do a nutritional assessment of our own diet. And so my protein percentage was like, 12. And fat was like 14%, and the rest was carbohydrates. So, but I get that by actually eating a lot of fruits and vegetables. So that is my focus. And in the morning, I actually usually work out fasted. And so my breakfast is actually my post-workout, kind of a meal. And I usually have oats because I find, with oatmeal, you can add banana, peanut butter, flaxseed, chia seed, and, berries. So you get the kind of actually the right ratio of protein. Like kind of, it should be 3-to-1. So I get usually about 20 grams of protein actually in my breakfast, 40 to 50 grams of carbohydrates. So that's really good. And then throughout the day, again, because my focus is on, actually micronutrients, I find smoothies are quite a good way of getting a lot of greens and different fruits, into my diet. And at the same time, Jaden mentioned the calorie density. Obviously, we need to eat a lot more. So I add, nut butters and flax seeds. Again, I focus on omega-3, so a lot of flaxseed and walnuts. I consume quite a lot of that. And I think that works quite well for me, I have to say. But yes, I think the good thing is being an athlete is that you get away with a bit of processed food, like Jaden was saying. But, for me, again, because I'm actually trying to kind of keep my migraines under control, I keep it really to a minimum. Probably just 5% of my diet is processed. The rest is that whole food plant-based.
Yeah, and it's slightly off topic, but with the migraines, I used to be a big migraine sufferer, and going vegan made them much better. So yeah, glad to hear you had the same effect. Yeah.
Yes. For me, it was actually life-saving because I had chronic migraines. So I spent like 20 days per month actually in bed. So for me, that was actually, a lifesaver, changing to a whole food plant-based diet. Yeah.
Great. And Jaden, thanks for the shout out about Doctors for Nutrition. We've got one of your colleagues, also called Josh, in the chat. So yes, if you're down under in the Antipodes, please do check them out, or wherever you are. It's all really good information. So any other favourite recipes that anyone would like to mention? Because you've already made everybody very hungry here, I can see. Is there anything else? Dustin, anything you can suggest?
Well, I will say from these books, I don't care for beets that much. I've grown to love them over time, but there is a beet bourguignon in this Know Me Athlete book that really just blows my mind. It's got lentils and beets in it and all sorts of other vegetables. It's very nutrient forward and delicious. I love it so much. And that plant-based athlete book as well, while I'm saying it's got all of these interviews and sort of profiles of different plant-based athletes, it also has a recipe section in the back. So it's got lots of different ways to sort of fuel athletes' routines. And what I think is interesting too, in talking about recipes and, Leila and Jaden sort of offering their different perspectives, I think it's good to mention to everybody that it's all trial and error for what works best for your body, right? Best for you specifically. So I think it's interesting that some of the stuff they mention is similar, but obviously it works in different ways for them, and they have different variations of items that they consume to sort of get the best performance out of.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think as an athlete, actually, you are in tune with your body, aren't you? So you know what is going on. You actually can sense, I need more calories now. So you can actually adjust. And I have to say, that book Dustin keeps mentioning, Robert Chicks and Matt Frazier's new book, it is very inspiring. Just reading all those stories, it makes you want, I'm already an athlete and I already follow a whole food plant-based diet, but I feel like, I wanted to even do more, So it is really inspiring. I really recommend to anybody who's interested, in athletics. So yeah, definitely.
And any recipes with beets? Sorry, go on, Jaden.
I was just going to say, I think it's really profound as well, especially for me as someone who spends hours and hours in the mountains running. When I am, alone on a single trail in the wilderness, I'm running through, fueling myself on whole plant foods, which at the same time, I'm looking at this beautiful environment. And as an athlete, like, we inspire people. People look up to us. People want to know what we do to be able to show them what's possible through human movement. And I think as someone who would consider themselves a steward of the outdoors in this way, I think it's up to us to lead in the right way and show people that we can fuel ourselves correctly while also looking out for these beautiful environments that we're out there enjoying as a result of. So I think for me, that's sort of really holistic in how I feel myself. It's bigger than me, but it also works really well for me.
That's great to hear. And have either of you heard any responses from other athletes? What do they say about your diet? Are they surprised or impressed, or have you encouraged anyone else to go more plant-based?
Yes, I think, when you tell people that obviously you're an athlete and you eat plant-based, the first question is, where do you get your protein from? And then the next question is, which protein powder are you using? And people are surprised when I tell them that actually I don't recommend protein powders at all, because you can get it from foods, and we don't have enough long-term data actually on the safety of protein powders, which are actually processed. So for me, as somebody who is using diet to control my migraines, I would never have protein powders because they are processed. And I just think, again, the focus on protein takes away the focus from carbohydrates. And we know that athletes actually, and no matter if they are trying to build muscle or they are endurance, athletes, they actually, run on carbohydrates. That should be our main actually source of fuel. And I think because of that, what other people don't realize, other non-plant-based kind of athletes, is that they are actually lacking a lot of micronutrients in their diet. So even if they don't notice it right away, because as I said, I think athletes get away with a lot of things, but later in life, they get all these injuries and they wonder, they think, oh yes, maybe it was the wrong training. Yes, maybe, but it was also the wrong diet. So I think it's the focus. We really should be eating, the rainbow. And I think as athletes, that is really important.
Completely. Yeah. Thank you so much. We're actually just running out of time, so we'll have to draw it to a close. But thank you so much again to all of you for joining us. That's been really, really useful and inspiring. I'm feeling inspired to go and do some exercise and make a delicious burrito bowl. Yes, Leila.
Josh, can I just say something? I read something, somebody in the chat, I think Elizabeth is asking about resources for migrants. I have actually recently written an article and about migrants, what to do. It's on vegan food and living, I think vegan living and food, sorry. So I don't know if you want to add the link or?
Okay, yeah, if you've got the link, you could put it in the chat, that would be great.
Yes. And we also have actually fact sheet on our website. So if you want, people go on Plant-Based Health Professionals UK, there's a fact sheet I have written. So they can.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
On migraine as well.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I'm just going to share my my screen to give you a bit of information. Okay, so these are the contact details for our fantastic guests from today. So please do check those out. We have, on topic, we have a live screening of the Game Changers documentary on February the 15th at 6 p.m. If you haven't seen it before, it's about athletes who are fueled by plant-based diets. It's incredibly inspiring, and we're going to have a Q&A with the host of the Exam Room podcast, Chuck Carroll. And we have some expert guests, Dr. Minal Patel, Dr. Bina Vicaria, and then from the film itself, we have Dr. James Loomis and bodybuilder Nimai Delgado. So please do sign up on our website if you're not already, and we will send you the details for that. And these are our promotional partners from today who have helped spread the word about this program. So we really want as many people as possible to see this program and check out the resources of all of our partners. So please do look them all up. Okay, so we're coming to the end of our class today. I'd just like to encourage you, please come back to our last class, which is next Thursday, the 17th of February at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where Dr. Barnard will discuss foods for good brain health. Dr. Hannah Karliova will discuss foods for good hormonal health. Dr. Sarai Stancic will discuss the link between nutrition and COVID-19. And Dr. Hayley Tate and Chef Kohler will give cooking demonstrations of some delicious meal ideas. So we look forward to seeing you again. But until then, from myself and Dr. Neal Barnard, we wish you a very happy week and we will see you next week. Goodbye.